A struggling single dad cradles a broken boy in a snowstorm. A billionaire mother watches from shadows until one letter, soft as firelight, rewrites the silence between them forever. Snow fell in whispers. It curled around the trees like smoke, drifting soft and slow over the shoulders of a two-lane road that hadn't seen a plow in hours. Pines lined the ditch banks, heavy with white. Somewhere far off, a raven called once and then was silent. Jack Halstead kept his truck steady as it crawled to the narrow bend, tires crunching over ice-packed gravel. His eyes scanned the tree line out of habit. He wasn't expecting anything. Most nights he drove home like this, late, cold, tired. The heater only half worked. The wipers squealed like they were grieving. A thermos rested on the passenger seat, wrapped in a child's pink scarf. It belonged to his daughter, Maisie. She left it in the truck last week. He hadn't brought it inside. It was a strange comfort, keeping it there. He poured coffee from it during breaks, even though the cocoa inside had long since cooled to bitterness. Just before the next curve, the snow seemed disturbed. Not much. A streak in the white, like something had dragged or slipped. Jack slowed, and then he saw the boy, small, barely more than 8 or 9, limping, alone, then suddenly gone, folded into ground like a marionette whose strings had been clipped. Jack slammed the brakes. The snow swallowed all sound. When he reached the boy, his boots sank deep. The child's face was pale against the frost. One leg bent the wrong way, not mangled but broken clean, eyes open, not crying, just watching the trees. "You're okay, bud," Jack said softly, kneeling. No answer. Jack looked around. No houses, no footprints but the boy's, and even those trailed off into wind-scuffed nothing. "Name?" Jack asked, voice low. The boy blinked, held tighter to something clutched in his mitten. A toy car, red, expensive. Jack didn't ask again. Instead, he took off his flannel. "This is gonna hurt, but you're not alone, okay?" No reply. Still, the boy didn't flinch when Jack gently lifted him. Didn't sob, didn't scream. That silence, it haunted Jack in a way he didn't understand yet. He carried the boy to the truck, made a splint with a windshield scraper and a flannel shirt, tied it with twine from the back seat. The kid watched him the whole time. When Jack offered him the thermos, the boy held it like something sacred. It wasn't until they reached the old ranger station, a stone building left open in case of storm emergencies, that Jack noticed the boy was crying after all. Not loudly, just one tear, sliding down into the corner of his jaw. Inside, it smelled like cedar and ash. The fireplace still worked. Jack lit it slowly, fed it with bark and patience. He wrapped the boy in a wool blanket and knelt beside him, adding snow to a kettle to warm. No cell service, no radio, just them. The boy kept the toy car clutched in his palm even as he shook. Jack didn't ask questions. He just moved slow. "You want a story?" he said after a while, sitting cross-legged on the floor. The boy didn't answer, but he nodded, so Jack told one, about a girl named Maisie who built a rocket out of a laundry basket and said she was on the moon to find Mama, about how she made Jack pack her peanut butter sandwiches in foil and whisper launch codes through the dryer vent. By the end of the tale, the kettle hissed and the boy had stopped trembling. Jack poured what was left of the cocoa into a mug and handed it over. "I think you landed somewhere," he said. The boy whispered then, just one word, "Leo." Jack smiled, quiet and full. "Good to meet you, Leo." Hours passed. The storm outside thickened, then thinned. Leo slept, curled on the bench near the fire. Jack dozed in the chair, thermos in hand. He didn't mean to fall asleep, but the warmth and the hush of snow wrapped him too well. When he woke, headlights bled across the windows. Black SUV. No sound of tires, just a shadow gliding over the white. Jack stepped outside as the engine cut. A driver emerged first. Then a woman, tall, composed, wrapped in wool and silence. She stepped into the firelight and froze, not because of her son, but because of the man sitting beside him, hair tousled from sleep, holding a thermos wrapped in pink. Their eyes met. Hers were rimmed with something unspoken, regret, maybe, or fear. Jack stood. "He's all right," he said softly. "Broken leg. Wrapped it best I could." He didn't scream. Not once. She nodded. Too fast. Too precise. Leo stirred. "Mama?" And she moved like glass breaking. Dropped beside him. Kissed his brow. Touched the flannel like it was unfamiliar. Jack stayed back. She looked up. Eyes green as pine needles under frost. Voice steady. "You're the man who found him?" Jack just nodded. She reached into her coat. Pulled out a leather wallet. "You'll be compensated." Jack didn't speak. She extended it farther. Her hand didn't shake. But Jack only looked at the wallet. Then at Leo. "I've already been," he said. She left the money, tucked it in the glove compartment before the SUV turned away. Jack didn't touch it. Didn't open the thermos the next day either. Just left it there on the seat, still carrying the faintest scent of cocoa and firelight. Maisie asked him that night why he looked tired. He said he'd met a boy named Leo. She asked if Leo had a home. Jack said, "Maybe." Maisie nodded solemnly, the way kids do when they understand more than they say. She looked at the thermos, then at Jack, and whispered we'd share with him if he didn't. Jack smiled, pulled her into his chest, let the silence stretch. Outside, snow fell again, but softer this time, like it was listening. The first snow had long since melted from the city, but Evelyn Ray still saw it, on windshields, in sidewalks, in the corners of rooms where memory lingered longer than it should. She hadn't spoken much since they left the ranger station. Leo sat in the back seat with a blanket tucked around his cast. He stared out the window, fingers wrapped around a thermos he refused to give back. It was battered, steel, wrapped in a pink scarf. The cocoa inside had gone cold hours ago, but he still sipped from it like it held something more than warmth. She let him keep it. Her son had stopped talking a year before. Gradually, like light leaving a hallway, doctors gave it names. Specialists offered theories. Tutors came. Tutors left. His silence remained. But now he whispered things into that thermos when he thought she couldn't hear. Things like, "He didn't ask me anything," or "His daughter makes rockets," or "He told me stories about the moon." She didn't ask. Not yet. The penthouse was glass and quiet. Too quiet. Evelyn moved through its rooms like someone passing through a hotel she didn't remember booking. She poured herself tea and didn't drink it, walked to the edge of the balcony and didn't step out, watched her son draw in silence and didn't know how to reach him until she found the letter. It was folded in quarters and tucked inside his coat pocket, paper thin as breath. Scrawled in blocky pencil, "Dear Mr. Jack, thank you for carrying me. Thank you for cocoa. You didn't look scared even when I was. I didn't tell you my name because I didn't want to make it real, but I'm glad you knew anyway. Leo." She didn't cry when she read it, but she sat down on the edge of her bed and didn't move for a long time. 3 days later, Evelyn stood outside a narrow storefront in a town the world had mostly forgotten. A repair shop. The windows fogged from heat inside. Faint music played from a radio she couldn't see. She hadn't meant to come. But Leo had drawn a map, crayon lines, crooked arrows, and at the bottom he'd written "He's here." So she came. And there he was, Jack, bent over a snowblower with a wrench in one hand, and his daughter balanced on a wooden stool beside him, watching every move like it was magic. They laughed, not loudly, not extravagantly, just the kind of laughter that belongs to people who know how to live in a moment without ruining it by wanting more. Evelyn stayed outside, hands buried in her coat pockets, hair pulled back too tight. The snow had returned, only lightly, dusting the town like a second chance whispered in white. She didn't go in. She just watched. Back home, she told Leo they could visit again. He smiled for the first time since the fall. Not wide, not long, but it counted. Evelyn sent a donation to the town's community shelter. Quiet, anonymous. She only signed it with initials. A week later, she returned under the guise of oversight. No one recognized her. She liked it that way. Jack was there, helping repaint the walls in exchange for daycare hours. Maisie was sitting in the corner, teaching younger kids how to cut snowflakes from paper napkins. Her laughter sounded like something Evelyn had forgotten she used to know. Jack glanced up, eyes catching hers. No surprise in them, just a nod. Their conversation happened in patches. By the coffee pot, near the wood stove, outside in the lot where snow turned to slush. "Leo's healing well," she said. Jack nodded. "I figured. He remembers a story." Jack's smile was small. He was a good listener. That was all, but it felt like more. Evelyn didn't mention the letter, didn't mention the thermos Leo still carried like armor. Instead, she watched. Jack didn't try to impress her. He didn't shrink from her either. He just kept working, fixing things, teaching kids how to replace bike tires, listening more than he spoke. She asked about the orchard. He told her it used to be full of apples. Now Maisie hung red ones on the trees in winter, so Mama can find her way. Evelyn said nothing. But that night, back in the guest house the shelter had offered her, she cried into her coat. One evening, Jack invited them to walk the orchard trail. The trees were bare and crooked, branches raised like hands mid-prayer. Maisie wore a cape made from an old curtain. She walked ahead of them, holding Leo's hand. Behind them, Jack offered Evelyn a cup. She took it. "Cocoa. Warm. No sugar. Thought you might want to taste what he remembers," Jack said softly. Evelyn's hands curled around the cup. Her voice, when it came, was quiet. "I don't know how to thank you." "You already did," he said. "You came back." They stood there for a long time. No need for anything else. Later, as Leo played by the orchard's edge, Maisie came to her, arms full of paper stars. "We're making a sky," she said, "so Mama doesn't get lost." Evelyn helped her string them between the branches, and when one slipped from her fingers, Jack caught it mid-fall. His hand brushed hers. Neither of them pulled away. That night, Evelyn didn't sleep. She sat by the window, watched the frost crawl over the glass, and pressed her fingers to the pink scarf tied around the thermos on the table. The cocoa inside had cooled, but somehow it still felt warm. The orchard wore its silence like a shawl. Branches bare, crooked with winter's memory, their bones stretched against the gray sky. The snow beneath was not fresh, trampled here and there by small boots and careful steps. Wind whispered between the trees, stirring faded ribbons tied to trunks, remnants of some forgotten autumn game. Maisie moved among them like she belonged to the woods. She wore her red cape again, still made from an old curtain, and carried a wicker basket filled with bruised apples. Each one she set gently in the crook of a low branch. "Mom likes red," she said softly. Leo followed her, cast still wrapped, moving slower but with purpose. His mittened hands reached out occasionally to steady a branch or press a note card onto bark. On each card, he'd drawn something simple: a sun, a rocket, a cocoa mug. "She'll see it," Maisie told him, "when the stars come back." Behind them, Evelyn and Jack watched in quiet. The orchard belonged to no one now. The land was owned by a bank, but the trees stood like stubborn old souls refusing to leave. Jack came here often, not for fruit, but for peace. He'd started bringing Maisie when the grief got too tight to swallow. They didn't speak about her mother much, but here, under empty branches and open sky, they didn't have to. Evelyn took it indifferently. The first time she stepped into the grove, she hesitated at the edge. Her shoes, far too clean for the snow, sank quickly, but she didn't turn back. Jack noticed. and said nothing. Later that evening, back at the community center, Evelyn surprised everyone by bringing a box of old heaters. Compact, dusty, unused since a corporate renovation 6 years prior. She placed them gently on the counter. They work, just need rewiring. Jack blinked, then smiled barely. "I've got the tools," he said. She nodded. That was all. They spent the next few afternoons side by side, him with his soldering kit, her wiping down grates and testing voltage. They spoke in fragments. About weather, about coffee preferences, about silence. "You don't seem afraid of it," she said once, not looking at him. "I grew up with it," he replied. "Eventually, it stops being a threat, starts being a choice." She nodded slowly. "I'm still learning the difference." That night, Evelyn found Leo's latest drawing slipped under her pillow. This one was different. For stick figures, a girl with a cape, a boy with a cast, a man with a beard, a woman with a ponytail and fire in her hands. He had drawn a sun in the corner and labeled it home. She didn't know what to do with that, so she folded it carefully and tucked it into her coat pocket. The next morning, Evelyn returned to the orchard alone. She found Maisie there, humming. Jack was off delivering firewood to a neighbor. Maisie looked up, squinting. "Do you know any songs?" Evelyn hesitated. "Maybe." "Good," Maisie said, scooting over on the log. "People who know songs are better at remembering." "Remembering what?" Maisie shrugged. "The stuff that hurts. They carry it better." She handed Evelyn a red apple. "Hang it on a high branch," she said. "The really good memories go up top." Evelyn did as she was told. Her fingers trembled. That evening, Jack lit a small fire pit outside the shelter. The kids gathered with blankets and cups. Someone brought marshmallows. Jack didn't say much, just handed Evelyn a mug as she sat beside him. "Maisie told me you sang today," he murmured. "She tricked me." Jack smiled into steam. "Maisie does that," he said, "with everyone." They watched the flames together. The wind picked up later. The fire dwindled. Everyone drifted inside, but Evelyn lingered. So did Jack. Snow began to fall, soft, aimless flakes. "I'm leaving next week," she said finally. "Back to the city? There's a gala. Obligations." Jack nodded slowly. "Right. I don't want to," she added. He looked at her then. Truly looked. "You don't have to explain." "But I want to," she said. The silence between them stretched, not heavy but full. "I built a life that doesn't know what to do with stillness," she said. "But here it's all I crave." Jack didn't move, just reached into his coat, pulled out something small. The letter Leo had written, the one Evelyn thought she'd lost. "He left it for me," Jack said, "but it was meant for you." Evelyn took it with both hands. The paper was soft, edges smudged. She didn't open it, just held it like something sacred. Later, before bed, she placed the letter on the nightstand, next to the thermos. The cocoa was cold again, but the scarf still smelled faintly of smoke and pine. And when she reached to hold it, her fingers didn't tremble this time. The city had never felt so tall. Steel spires pierced the sky, their windows blinking like eyes that never closed. Traffic murmured in the distance, dull, relentless, without pause. Somewhere across the skyline, a jet dragged a whisper cloud behind it. Evelyn stood at her window, one hand pressed the glass. The letter lay unopened on her desk behind her. Days had passed since she'd returned. The gala had come and gone. Photographs taken, speeches made, smiles worn like armor. But she kept hearing the silence between sentences, the kind she found only in a small town, only in the orchard, only with him. She opened the letter just after midnight. It was written on lined paper, torn from a notebook. The handwriting was steady, slow, each letter carefully shaped. The kind of writing that came from someone who didn't write often, but meant every word when they did. "Evelyn, I don't know what this is or what it's supposed to be. But it's been quiet here since you left. Not the kind of quiet I'm used to. Leo left behind his drawing, the one with the four of us. Maisie taped it to the fridge, said it made the kitchen warmer. I don't have much. I won't pretend I do. But I've got a steady hand, a good fire, and a daughter who believes in stars. If you ever get tired of glass ceilings and cold rooms, there's Coco here. And stories. No pressure. Just thought you should know. Jack. She read it twice. Then again, slower. She didn't cry. She just folded it, slid it into her coat pocket, and left the lights off when she walked away from the window. Leo was already awake. She found him curled beneath a blanket, a sketchbook in his lap, coloring quietly. He looked up as she entered, eyes wide. "We're going back," she said softly. He didn't smile. He just stood and wrapped his arms around her waist and held on like a boy who already knew the answer before she gave it. The orchard had started to thaw. The snow was patchy now, retreating into shadows and tire ruts. The apple trees stood bare still, but the tips of some branches had flushed red with the first signs of bud. Jack was at the edge of the field when he saw the car. It wasn't the SUV from before. This one was smaller, dusty, a little out of place on the road, but it stopped all the same. Leo got out first. Then Evelyn. She didn't wear her heels this time. Didn't wear her walls either. She had the thermos in her hands, still wrapped in pink. Jack didn't move right away. Neither did she. It was Maisie who broke the spell, running from the porch, cape flying, arms flung wide toward Leo. He met her halfway, laughing in short bursts as they stumbled through the old snow. Jack stepped forward. So did Evelyn. They met somewhere between silence and firelight. She held the thermos out. "I filled it," she said. "Hope I got the mix right." He took it gently. "You remembered." "I never forgot." He looked at her for a long moment, then reached into his jacket and pulled out something small, a key. "To the workshop," he said, "in case you ever need stillness." Evelyn took it with careful fingers. "Stillness is rare," she said, "but I think I've started learning how to keep it." They didn't kiss. Not yet, but their hands found each other's as they turned toward the fire pit, where the children had already gathered sticks and half-burned apples for toasting. The sun slipped lower behind the hills, casting gold to the bare trees. No speeches, no promises, just the soft rhythm of something beginning again. Later that evening, after the fire had dwindled and the cocoa cup sat empty, Evelyn stood alone beneath the orchard's tallest tree. She reached into her coat and pinned Jack's letter to the bark with a red ribbon, not to forget, but to remember where it started. Wind stirred the pages. Somewhere nearby, Jack spoke her name. She turned and walked toward him, toward the future neither of them had planned, but both of them had quietly hoped for. If this story touched you, subscribe or share where you're watching from. These stories matter.